Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba described his speech as tough but hopeful. Is that a correct assessment?
Well, I think business largely reacted positively. The markets reacted positively, but we have seen that ordinary South Africans, are feeling the pinch and they're feeling the pain. The truth of the matter is that growth has been revised upwards, and we are taking steps in the right direction. So we're not there yet. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some pain, but I think the minister is right in describing that it's hopeful. There's light at the end of the tunnel, so we shouldn't despair.
One of the things that was most spoken about around this budget before it came out and afterwards is VAT, as we just saw. This increase to 15%, what effect is it going to have on ordinary South Africans? And then there's also the counter that even though the minister said, although VAT is increasing, grants are also going to increase, but it's not enough.
Yes. So ordinary South Africans have been living under a lot of strain. We know that we're sitting with almost 30% unemployment. It has come down a little bit. We've seen periods of very high food inflation. Thankfully, that has resided, and we now have an inflation rate in the region of 4.4%. So things have been improving, but South Africans have been through a tough period, and I suppose that's one of the reasons why there's so much kickback. And the truth of the matter is VAT is a regressive form of taxation. It means that it hits the poor harder. But the minister tried to give back in different ways through increasing the social grants that increased above inflation in the region of 6%. And we're also seeing the introduction of the minimum wage later this year. And to be quite honest, the group of people that I'm most worried about as an economist is probably the lower end of the employed population. The unemployed will be sheltered to some extent because a lot of basic foodstuffs are VAT exempt or zero rated, in fact, and the same with public transport and education. But people that have just enough money, to not be able to get the social grants, we need to look after them, because that's quite a vulnerable group that the moment is not targeted specifically.
We've heard that 1.4 billion rand is allocated to small and medium enterprises, and in the medium term later on there's going to be a 2.1 billion rand fund for startups, almost a push to try and get small businesses empowered and off the ground quicker than normal. Is this enough money to do this in a country where, like you've said, there's 26.7% unemployment and growth is very, very low? Yeah.
So we really need small businesses to be the growth engine of the South African economy. So I'm really happy to see that this was allocated to small and medium-sized enterprises. Under the circumstances, I can understand that it wasn't a lot more. So it is something. It's not enough yet, but I think we rather need to focus on some of the processes and implementation of a lot of the initiatives that are already in place.
We also heard that 2017 GDP has been revised up to 1.1%, up from 0.7%, as we heard at the medium-term budget speech. Is this also an indication of more good news for South Africa, perhaps bigger growth to come and things starting to move a little bit quicker?
Yes, this coming year, or 2018's growth forecast, has also been revised slightly upwards. But if we keep in mind that the South African population is growing by just over 1%, if the economy is growing at 1%, we actually, per capita, each of us getting poorer. So we need growth of at least over 1%. So the 1.6% that we expect this year is positive, but it's not enough yet. But if we want to look at it, we need to recognize that at least it's a move in the right direction. We're seeing some momentum in the right direction. We're expecting 2.5% or 2.2% in about 3 years' time, but we need to get to that magic 5% number of the NDP.
Stephen Kosef also speaking about that 5%. How would we get there?
Well, first of all, if we get our industrialization and manufacturing sectors going again, if South African businesses start investing again, business confidence return, if we get more people into jobs, those are the kinds of things that we want to see. And some of the incentives that the minister announced yesterday for small businesses, for special economic zones, those are all steps in the right direction.
Lulu, thanks so much for your time on SABC News. It's time for a short break. When we come back, more business news. Do stay with us.